You the bomb.
And then I can share it from whoever's page.
Yeah.
Oh, I can do that real quick too.
Oh, it's on there already.
It's on all of them?
It's on live. So I guess we can go ahead and get started. How are y'all doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. First, I want to thank you for asking me to moderate this for you. I will say that this is not an endorsement because I don't want no one to feel like I'm endorsing anybody. So this is not an endorsement, but it's good to really be able to dialogue with you both who are really running some strong campaigns along with the others that are running, but you guys are really running a strong campaign. So I don't know. I guess, that's what welcome. Do you want a little background on me? My name is Precious McKesson. I am the chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party Black Caucus, as well as the newly finance director for the party. And I represent the United States of Women Nebraska ambassador. So I have a lot of different titles and different things in the works and working in. But one of the most important things is that I'm a really strong voter, and not only a strong voter, I believe in the politics and I believe in Nebraska candidates that are running for office. So that is something I'm very passionate about. And that's a little bit about me, and we can go from there. And today we have Alisha Shelton, who is running for U.S. Senate, and we have Terrell McKinney, who's running for Legislative District 11. And so today, guys, we'll have the comments. Go ahead and get your comments in the live feed. They'll be able to see the comments. We'll answer as many questions as we have. So make sure you put them out there, anything you want to know. And then we'll go ahead and kick it off with introducing yourself with opening statements. If you would like to go, Alisha.
Sure. So my name is Alisha Shelton, and I am running for United States Senate because this is an America I no longer recognize. I've never seen the amount of division, and especially the way that our leadership is handling COVID-19. This is a really critical moment for us, and I'm ready to step up into the role federally and get some more accommodations. So here's a quick example. Ben Sasse voted against the coronavirus relief plan. He was one of the 8. So everyone who's getting this stimulus check and it's arriving about this week, if you think that $1,200 is not enough, then you should not vote for Ben Sasse. Think that there should be some changes to that. And I have been recommending $2,000 monthly until we're out of this pandemic, and this is already being done by other countries. For instance, this is something that is determined in the federal role that I'm running for, which is the United States Senate. So my website is sheltonforsenate.com. Please check me out. I'm eager and excited to greet you, answer any questions you have, and to be here today. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Terrell?
My name's Terrell McKinney, candidate for Legislature, District 11. I decided to run because I believe our community is at a crossroads where we need new leadership that's going to step up and start addressing issues within our community that have not been addressed for some years. I always say that North Omaha looks as the same or worse as when I was a kid. And I believe that I'm the strongest candidate to get into Lincoln and start making some changes for our community and build on the foundation that Senator Chambers has laid for our community. I believe that starts with economic equity and opportunity, addressing criminal justice reform, looking at the education system and healthcare access. You can visit my website to learn more about me, peopleforterrellmckinney.com.
All righty. So let's go start into a little joint discussion, and let's just talk about what's going on right now. Here in Douglas County, and even actually, I should say in the state, we now know that we are trying to push the early vote ballots. Can you talk about what you're doing on your campaign and why it's important for people to do the early voting ballot, fill out the early voting ballot request forms, and to get those ballots in the mail? Whoever wants to go first.
I could go. Well, what I'm doing right now is calling people as much as possible. I'm going to start sending out some texts soon. I do a people power. I'll try to do a people power hour every week. I send out a newsletter just to stay connected with voters in our community. I try to post something at least once a day, sharing some type of updates. But it's really going to be big for our community because we are the most at risk for getting infected with the coronavirus and deaths. So it's imperative that as many people as possible in our community vote by mail. Also, they're going to be closing some polls in our community, and that's going to be a hindrance for a lot of voters in our community. So if you can vote by mail, try to do it as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Alisha?
Yeah, so, oh man, we have been talking on a virtual platform as well as calling voters and speaking to them about voting by mail. And so I want to take the opportunity to discuss it today because I still have my green card, although I already voted by mail because I requested a ballot with the Nebraska Democratic primary party. Oh my God, what am I trying to say? Yeah.
The party.
So on this form, this is what Pete Ricketts had approved for everyone to get one of these. So you should, if you're in Douglas County, yours may look like this. I used to try to cover my address, but you can find it on Google now, so it's not a big deal. So this is, hopefully you can see it. Mm-hmm. You have to sign the bottom over here. It asks for your email address and it asks for your phone number. And so you only check the box on this specific one if you want to always vote by mail. And so I've noticed that we've been doing a lot more education about why you need to do this first. Many people are thinking this is the ballot and this is not the actual ballot. This is the request to get the ballot. So we've been doing a lot of phone calls and talking with individuals about the process. And then other people are asking, where is mine? I sent it out. Where is my ballot? And so I've just been asking them to, hey, give it a little bit of grace, give them a little bit of time because they have an overwhelming amount of ballots that they are sending out right now. You can call the Douglas County Election Commission if you are in Douglas County. If you are not, you can call your county judge. What is it? I'm trying to say.
County Commissioner Office.
Commissioner Office. Thank you. And they will be able to give you that information. And so the other thing that we have been doing is I've been staying connected with the networks that I have from Xavier University to the doctors, the physicians I know, the nurses on the front line, the pharmacists that I'm talking to who are all over the United States to see what is happening and what information we need to know. And doing that research, I am finding out that we are lacking in so many areas. And so what I'm trying to do is encourage everyone to follow the recommendations on the CDC's website to make sure you're practicing social distancing, but also to think about if you know anyone that is disabled and they are in a treatment facility or a home, if you know someone in a nursing home, if you have someone who is a veteran and they are in a home, do your best to support them and maybe take them with you, because right now we are not set up to make sure that everybody who is in a facility can make it and thrive. And so right now, in this pandemic, we are noticing in closed facilities that it is so contagious that individuals are not having a success rate of handling it. So just trying to give that information out. And I hope that everyone is well and give yourself grace in this moment to just deal with everything. It's new to us. We all are adjusting to this as we find out information. So just know that every day that you are here and your family is safe, that's the day that you won.
Awesome. Now, I know just recently we had a call with the Douglas County Election Commission, actually yesterday, and they said that it was the number he gave us. He said that the number of people that have requested ballots this year, this election cycle, is more than the people that voted in 2016 and 2018. So that means this is going to be a historical election. So people definitely need to make sure that they're getting those ballots back in. And get the request in and get the ballots in. And then they basically said that today and Monday will be a heavy mailing date. I mean, they've increased their staff by I think they were at 14, now they're at 50. So they're working like double time to make sure they get those out, to make sure that people are safe. Some people I feel like some people feel it's historically like the best thing to do is go to the polls, because that is something that a lot of people people that look like us, they fought for us to have that right. But it's like, yeah, we want to go to the polls. We want to be safe though too. So definitely people should really be putting the ballots in the mail, and just know they are safe. You can check that ballot. I dropped my ballot off last Saturday, and by that Monday it had been accepted.
Wow.
So you can track it. Yeah. So they were moving pretty fast. I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool that you can track it. So definitely.
One more thing too, one more point. and speaking about like historical, we have also never, as Democrats, we've never had 7 candidates for United States Senate. And so that in itself is a historical race. And I know that individuals, we pretty much know who has suspended their campaigns and who is maintaining their campaign on the presidential ballot. But it's very important that you all vote for United States Senate, because that is the body that's actually doing the work, that's voting to get plans passed. And if you have any issues and concerns with the policies on the federal level, you are probably wanting to make sure that you are voting for the U.S. Senate candidate. So please make sure that you do that. And I also wanted to say a shout out to the United States Postal Service and the Election Commission, because they are working super, super, super hard, putting themselves at risk so that we can voice our democracy and have a voice and speak for ourselves. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome. And shout out to Corey Miller. She stated that she got her ballot a day or so ago, and she's in Saunders County. Okay. And she changed her ballot from independent to Democrat. So that's what we're talking about. Craig got his ballot this morning, and he filled it out and already sent it in. And that's the thing. It's like, we just want to make sure that everybody knows why we're being safe. Stay home. Your ballot can be sent in. It's nothing that's going to be it's not going to be a rigged election. Just send that ballot in. It's okay. Trust me, it's okay. We're doing everything in our power to make sure that we are watching everything closely. Trust and believe. Chair Kleb is on it. They are making sure that nothing is violated in this election. We're going to make sure that it's a fair process. And then after May 12th, everybody's going to be heading into that. Whoever's heading over into that general, and we're going to come full swing because we want to really flip a lot of seats. So I wanted to ask a quick question that came up, with us being in the COVID epidemic and everything. What are your thoughts right now, like where we are as a country and as a state, and what can we do better to really get people engaged? Because right now the news has consumed us mentally, physically, emotionally, and everything. So what do we need to do to change up so that people can really kind of get back in the swing of things when it is time to, but still maintain while we're down?
You want to go first, or do you want me to?
I put a lot in that question.
I think right now, as a country and as a state, I would say we're in a weird space. I think the problem is there's been a lot of misinformation being sent out, and it's sent out every day. So a lot of people are confused and they don't know what to do and what not to do. So I would say to kind of get out of that is just start trying to spread as many positive vibes as possible on social media. Everybody's on social media. So if we could just start spreading some positive vibes, calling our family and friends. My family been annoyed with me this week. I try to call them like every morning, and I just mass call everybody and put them on I'm like, like, good morning. I'm just checking if it's a family check-in time, just to see people, just to get people to smile and send some positive vibes, because a lot of people are confused and concerned about what's going on.
Well, TikTok was something for me. Like, I felt like coming out of my norm and doing something that I normally wouldn't do to kind of put a smile, but and calling my sister every day. I do call her every day to check on her to see how she's doing and how she's keeping up. Go ahead, Alisha.
So I think that I agree with Terrell on many of the things that he said. I think the important thing is sticking to the facts. And so in a time where many of us don't feel like we are receiving clear leadership, one thing I'm very, very proud of is the movement of love that I'm already seeing in Nebraska. The volunteers who are donating food, the people who are saying, hey, if you need something, get in my inbox or drop your Cash App name, I'm going to send you some money. The individuals who work in the cafeteria at schools that are preparing meals, the churches that are chipping in. So I love to see that we are doing the best that we can at the level that we are to care for each other, because that's who we really are as Nebraskans. That's amazing for me to see. I think that the other thing is, while we are making sure that we are checking out and doing something we've never done before, we also have to give ourselves space to not be okay. We have to give ourselves space to just sit here and say, gosh, I really had a hard day teaching and cooking for kids and whatever. And I'm just going to sit here right now because I don't know what I want to do next. That's okay. And so we should try to live life in harmony. And that's balancing the good and the bad. And so the best way for us to do that is to be aware, to always try to practice mindfulness, to be aware of your five senses, your emotions, what your body is noticing, of being aware, tracking that in your kids, and just know that to stick to the facts and stay healthy. The other thing that I want to say is, so there are some information, data that's being shared about who's at risk, and we are still finding out different various populations, smaller towns, etc. And so as best as you can, please continue to practice social distancing. Even though we are having areas in Nebraska that are opening up, that doesn't mean that the threat goes away. We really and truly will not be safe until there is a vaccine. And so especially if you are pregnant right now, if you are at risk, please just do the best that you can to practice social distancing and make sure that you stay safe. Although we are having people who are stating that it's okay to go out, it might not truly be okay. Like, let's talk about the people who have been infected. Chris Cuomo just did an interview saying that his wife now has COVID-19 and that his doctor told him, stay away from your wife. They're social distancing in their own house because he has an immune condition and might be able to get reinfected. That's how unknown this is right now. So I just want you all to know that trust your instincts, trust your gut, and please protect yourself. And as we continue to find the information, I know many people are sharing it, but stick to the facts.
And I agree with you. I think one thing, Corey had asked what areas in Nebraska opened up. I think it was more not the cities opening up, but certain entities. For instance, the Nebraska Crossing.
Businesses.
And they have said, oh, we're going to open up and this and that. And so it was kind of, we had a call today and we had talked about that. And we're like, well, why can't we do anything? And we said, well, because Douglas County, Nebraska Crossing is in Sarpy County. So technically they're not under the same health rules that we're under when it comes to Douglas County. So, I mean, it was kind of like now we have to spread the message because that does come back to our county. So we could see a spike in increase if people decide to go out there. And so I kind of said something funny. I said, it's kind of like licking the door handles and just saying, hey, I'm gonna lick the door handle, come and touch it. It's like, that's how I feel that's basically what it is at this point. I think with COVID, the one thing that sits in my mind is that 3 weeks ago today, I was watching CNN and it was like at 11, maybe 11:45-ish. And the tick number has said like 1,495 deaths. And by the time 12:05 hit, it was at 1,505. Then it went up. So at that time, I stopped watching. And so, but all that sticks in my head is the 1,505 number compared now what I see 3 weeks later, over 31,000. That is like something that's terrifying to me. And I don't think people are taking it serious. Those numbers, and this just the fact that a tick mark, a number keeps rising during a newscast, it's horrific to think about that. I mean, it's like it's really bad. So I think that we need to really be mindful and be a little bit more, open about things that we just need to practice social distancing. Like it'll be hopefully it'll it won't be completely over, but it'll come down. And then we can go back to a little bit of normalcy. But for now, we need to be smart about it. Terrell, did you have something else in regards to that?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Yeah. So I thank you. I appreciate that one. And I did want to ask this question. I know that this one was something that was brought up today, and I was very concerned about it. Looks like they had made a call. I was on a call today, so I mean, it's not like if the call was streamed live on Facebook. And they had mentioned that the National Guard, we keep hearing about the National Guard. And they had mentioned that the National Guard would be coming in to assist with food giveaways. And I'm like, why? So what are your thoughts on that? Because my thing is that we've been doing good. What are your thoughts on them allowing that? Do you think it's opening up the door for something else that we don't know about yet? Or since when does a nonprofit, they said that a nonprofit may have requested, has that much capacity to call in the National Guard? Because I don't think a nonprofit can do that. So what are your thoughts?
I think if they're considering bringing a National Guard in, they know something we don't know about this virus. I know a lot of doctors are saying like towards the end of this month is when it's really going to peak for our state. So maybe that's why. I'm not sure. That's very concerning though if they do bring them in. not a good look.
Okay.
And so I think traditionally, when we see the National Guard, it's at high levels of where there's risk, like safety risk, and historically, that's what we tie it to. So without having the information, I think that everybody probably holds their breath a little bit to wonder, hey, what is this really going to be about? And I'm surprised that we're not instead utilizing our Reserve Corps to get 200,000 physicians and medical staff to come to every state and help us with our testing. Because we know in rural places, we know what's happening in Grand Island, and Hastings is over there. We have places that are neighboring. And so if we are not taking care of these rural towns, it is slowly going to spread out. So I just don't understand what the plan would be for the National Guard if it's only going to include food and not going to include setting up testing sites or like our president originally said, Walmart parking lots. I still haven't seen a testing site in Nebraska in any Walmart parking lot.
So with that being said, you mentioned our small rural towns, Alisha, and with you running for U.S. Senate. And I know most likely we might touch on this tomorrow when we do the Black Caucus one, but I just want to talk about how, so many hospitals were closed in the rural communities, and now they only have one hospital. So you have a lot of senior care centers where people are not able to get the proper care. On a federal level, what do you think needs to be done in order to make sure that we are taking care of our rural communities?
And so I think what COVID-19 has done is expose the weaknesses we've already had in our economy and our infrastructure, period. We should always have more facilities in all of the rural areas, period. Because let's say Herman, Nebraska. If I drive through Herman, Nebraska, there is not even a clinic in Herman, Nebraska. They have to go to Takema, and even in Takema, it's not easily visible. And so we need to have, and I'm not talking about satellite clinics. I'm talking about clinic facilities, hospitals that are in equidistance from our rural communities. And so I think federally, we need to get better at doing this, not just in Nebraska and Georgia and all these other places that are crying out and saying, hey, our rural towns are struggling. And so there's a formula that we can simply put together and say, hey, anybody, no matter where they are living, can they get to care within 30 miles? You might think that 30 miles is far. Some people might think it's far. Some people might think it's not that far. It's truly not that far if you are in an emergency situation. If your child is choking and you are trying to get help and you are trying to get to a facility, 30 miles is life and death. Mm-hmm. And so I'm prepared to introduce co-sponsor legislation. I already know who I'd likely work with when I get to the United States Senate to co-sponsor legislation to get more facilities here in all of our rural areas, because that's something that we need in order to beat this. Right now, they can simply set up satellite clinics or satellite areas for testing at the schools, because if one thing we know for sure, every rural town has a school. And school is out right now. And so let's leave all of the civic areas, the courthouse, let's leave those spaces safe and protected because people are still working there. But let's set up in a school parking lot and have a drive-through where they can simply drive through, roll their window down and get tested. And then they know what they are dealing with.
Right. So Terrell, with you on a state level, that's something that you will, if you are elected to the legislature, that you will have to deal with. I mean, because we have, our majority is rural, Nebraska's rural. So how would you work with the other senators in regards to that, in making sure that not only in your district, because this district LD11 is a very, let's say, disenfranchised district, and you're working to improve this district, but how do you continue to help with that in the rural community also?
I would say to continue to help with that in rural communities is to realize that we face a lot of the same issues, just like this one. So just getting that across, like just setting that table for that, hey, we are both dealing with this. We may disagree on a bunch of other things, but let's make sure that people are able to get what they need and they're able to be protected and able to stay safe and get proper health care in their communities. It's something that is always talked about, whether you're a rural senator or urban senator and all these, and this big divide. But I think it's just finding a commonality and what do we have in common to get this done. We're gonna disagree on everything else. Let's just get this done, and then we'll build. And that's what it takes is to be effective.
Got you. And then Corey wanted to make sure we knew that all rural towns, since they are rural, many of them use the same school district. So some of the kids do have to leave their town to go to another town for the schools.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, because I know. I mean, it's hard. I mean, we know that people are driving 20 and 30 minutes to get to school, and
Nebraska. Yeah.
We got to really work a little bit harder in our rural towns. So I do appreciate you both on that one. So with the CARES Act, everybody's been talking about it. So we had our phase 1. People got stimulus out of it. The one thing that hurts the most is that they've ran out of money for the small business loans. That's right. Like that means that we know there's a need. We say there's not small businesses, but it's a need because people aren't supporting those small businesses. So now they really need to need the money so that they can continue to grow. What do you think was missing in number 1? And what do you think could be added to this one that they're working on now? Like, what would you add? What would you have added to it or did? I think that's something, and that could be on both levels. I mean, Terrell, you can answer that question too. Like, what do you think you would have done different if you had the opportunity to do it?
I think the very first thing that I would have done different is take the annual percentage rate down to 0. And so everyone talks about, all interest rates went down to 0. Yeah, that was for houses. And if you are fortunate, if you are still working and you're able to buy a house right now in the midst of this pandemic, my prayers are with you as you move, and congratulations. However, most of us, if you look at the way our economic system is set up, most Americans have credit card debt and hospital debt, medical debt. And so for you to leave that percentage rate at that 22 APR, whatever it is, that is still debilitating to people. The other thing is you cannot recommend in a state, oh yeah, please don't ask for rent, and then not give landlords a way out, because they have bills that they are paying too. So if we're going to ask people to not take money, we also have to support that other side and say, this is what we're willing to do. So that's another issue. Third, we had 22 million people this week, 22 million people apply for unemployment. We have people right here in our state and even in Iowa that are working overtime trying to process these claims. We don't have the manpower. We have now flooded our system. Just like in New York, we're flooding the hospital. We are flooding the unemployment system. And now people who maybe we said they were going to get benefits and not have to wait are now waiting 2 and 3 weeks to just get benefits and have that done correctly. So we were not prepared. We did not bring in more staff. We did not train individuals to say, hey, this is the way that we are going to do this. And we're going to do this maybe in phases. So that's something that we need to address. We need to get volunteers or some of the individuals, whatever that most Nebraska workforce facilities have volunteers or agencies that they work with and helping people get employed. We should have a system where we can enact volunteers or individuals who are retired to come in and help us process these claims. So that's another area. The third thing that I would say is that we've talked about and we've heard that we are going to support people, to make sure that they have care. I've not seen anybody say, oh, I'm going to make sure that you don't get a bill. And I've seen people sharing posts on social media where individuals are going in, getting a diagnosis of COVID-19 and leaving with a medical bill. Why are we doing that? That's something that should already be taken care of. This is something that none of us anticipated. I think at this point, it doesn't matter what country it came from or who started who. What matters is what are we going to do for Americans who are 22 million are unemployed and likely uninsured, And now if they have this diagnosis, they have to go to the doctor and pay their bills and put gas in their car to get there and get home and try to, or maybe stay in a hotel to social distance themselves from their family if they have a positive diagnosis. So there's a number of things that I would say that we could definitely do. And then the same thing for companies. We should make a deal. We should talk with the companies who manage the utilities, because I know that they are also saying, hey, we're going to do our best and not shut things off and to leave on the electricity and the gas. But then on the back end, how are they paying their employees? How are their companies thriving? And so you mentioned that these small businesses, these loans have been depleted. We don't know if there's anything that is still functioning on their side too. So I think all in all, I can summarize it in a level of transparency. I think that's what we're missing from the equation. We all want to know details. We all want to know how, who, what, when, why, when. All of those things we want to know. And I hope that in this next phase that it's heavily listened to, and that the biggest thing they do is beef up the testing.
Gotcha. Terrell?
First, I would say the government should define small business. I saw Roof Chris got like 20 million.
20 million.
That's a problem. They should prioritize businesses, especially in areas of high poverty. They maybe create a tier system or something, but it's no way that a Roof Chris should get 20 million and you got all these small mom and pop businesses that can't get nothing right now. And that's a huge issue. I would say give people $2,000 a month also. $1,200 isn't nothing, especially if you live in New York or whatever. And they're telling people to continue to pay their bills. It's like, how can I continue to pay my bills? And I got to make sure we eat. I'm accruing debt, because that's not talked about either. It's like, yeah, you're deferring the rent payments and everything else, but what about when you lift it and I got a $5,000 bill sitting on my table? How am I going to pay that? Maybe it should be some type of stoppage, and the government finds a way to pay property management landlords or something. I just don't think that's been thought out either. And it's not even just rent. People got car payments, utilities. It's a big issue. Also, I would say probably expand Medicare right now, immediately, for everybody. If you need it, you should be able to access it, because should nobody go to get tested for coronavirus and leave with a $10,000 bill? That's crazy. Next is streamline the unemployment process. Right now, people are sitting on the phone for hours. They're like 300 in the queue. That's the issue. You send something in, they tell you to wait 3 days. You send something back in, it's another 3 days. It makes no sense, and that's probably it.
I think with the unemployment thing, I was reached out today by a hairstylist, and she made a very valid point. She said, Precious, we feel that we're not being listened to and we don't have a voice because we're self-employed. So this is something we weren't expecting. We've been off work for 3 weeks. We can't do hair. We can't do, these are our livelihoods. And so she was like, we don't know what's going on. We don't get no information from unemployment. And then she said that she felt that the questions were difficult. So almost like and I'm thinking they applied as soon as before they went in and changed the codes to where they didn't have to answer all those questions. But my thing is, I think they should have divided the staff up, and then they should have had a certain amount of people who were designated for self-employed employees, people who knew that they were people who are currently employed but furloughed, and then people who just basically are not, who will still do their caseload with people who are receiving unemployment currently. If you would have divided into 3 tiers, then you could really hit that big chunk, which would have been our self-employed and our small business people, and then the people who are furloughed. So I really think they should have strategically did it a different way. Just so that we can get that out there. But I do see that they are understaffed and they are trying to get that out there. But we knew, I feel like we had a head start. So we knew this was going to happen. We knew we were going to have a lot of people that were going to apply for unemployment. So I wish they would have kind of did that a little bit, basically planned a little bit better.
And with that, I think they should probably simplify the question process or whatever, because to me, it feels like, the type of questions that they're putting out right now is to catch people up, to discourage people from applying, essentially. And I just think that's a problem, because so many people are going through stuff. Why make it difficult for me to access these resources if you're telling me I could get them?
Yeah, I agree. So,
well, and one of the, I just wanted to double check because I got a message today that, now this is somebody that works with unemployment office in Iowa, and she said that they're being mandated to work 10-hour days. And so they have already been working 10-hour days, 6 days a week. And now they're not having any days off just to try to meet the demand of individuals who are applying, which again, they want to do this. They want to try to help the economy, but we are not setting them up in a way where they can even take care of themselves.
Right. I agree. And like I think Corey had mentioned this, and I think this was a good idea. When you ask for volunteers, having substitute teachers who aren't getting any pay right now, that would have been perfect time for them to come in and assist in some of these areas. They should have reached out to the floating pool of the nurses who are but most likely they may not all be working right now.
That's right.
Because you don't want our volunteers, our elderly, or our high risk, or people who are high risk for it. But they could have went to another channel and said, let's bring our substitute teachers, because we have a really big variety of substitute teachers that are in there that they could have used to do this. So,
Corey, I need your mind. Come work with my campaign.
Then
I love this feedback.
So then I have a question. So we know that Medicaid expansion was voted on and passed by the voters in 2018. Mm. Right now, we're showing that if over 90,000 people in Nebraska had medical insurance, do you think it would be? Do you think that would matter right now? And do you feel that federally they should be putting mandates on those governors who have not signed those bills to let that go into effect? Should they be held accountable for that on the federal level?
Absolutely. Sorry. So yes to both of those things. So on the first level, if we give people insurance, that empowers them. And they know that if I get sick or if something is wrong, then I can say something. If you don't have insurance, you have a tendency to try to just get through. You're wondering, oh, okay, I read this. This isn't a symptom. This might be a symptom. And so you're not as likely, statistically, we know this across the board, you're not as likely to call or try to go in and be seen because you don't know what's going to happen when you go in. And especially right now, you can't walk into the ER for small things. So if you don't have a PCP or a primary care physician, if you don't have insurance and you don't have a doctor that you're working with actively, you have no place to call other than the health department to say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. Can you tell me where can I go? And so that's the first thing. The second thing is Governor Pete Ricketts, I can respect leadership, but I'm disappointed in his choices for a number of reasons because the people voted for Medicaid expansion. And one thing that we love about America is freedom of speech. This is the land of the free, the home of the brave, and we want our democracy. This is not a dictatorship. So for one person to exert power to limit us, and then I don't even know, I know that there was pushing movement from our state legislators to ask him if he would go ahead and open it Medicaid now. And I didn't see if that has happened yet. But if we had this, then people would absolutely be trying to get in and be seen, or at least call in their primary care physicians that they would have already had established. So absolutely, something should be done because, like I said, this is America.
And I would say yes and yes also, because the reality of it is the only reason Medicaid isn't expanded is because the governor wanted the state to apply for a waiver to institute work requirements and other things for people to utilize Medicaid and to build a tiered system, which is an issue. I think he should have to sit in front of some type of some Senate investigation. Like, why didn't you do this? Like, what logic are you using in your office right now to say, hey, no, we're not going to expand it, but we're in the middle of a pandemic? It just makes no sense. To me, it's just a lack of leadership and a lack of respect for the people that you're claiming to represent.
And let's talk about JBS in Grand Island. You have factory workers who are working in a meat plant who don't have insurance, who cannot go in and say, hey, this is the symptom that I'm having. And now you have individuals that are flooding the hospitals there. So these are all examples that we can tie back. We can track what is happening due to the lack of resources we have in our very own state. And there's one person who is largely in control of that.
Yeah, it's not good at all. So with that being said, what can we do as Nebraskans to make a change in leadership? And why should we be, what should we be doing right now to make that change?
The first thing that you should be doing right now to make a change in leadership is getting your early ballot and voting for Alisha Shelton for United States Senate, because nobody is getting into my pockets. I'm not for corruption. I'm not going to be for corporations over people. I'm going to put the people first and make sure that their voices are heard and make sure that we have common sense. There will be no thriving economy if the people are not here to work those positions, to make sure that we are able to put into the economy. And so what I would say is, yes, vote, watch for the governor. If you know somebody who you feel would be great as a governor, please start talking to them now, because his time is coming. And we need to have a viable candidate who will do what we need in the state right now, which is unite. We need to stand together. We need to bring that spirit that we have in Nebraska. When we go to Memorial Stadium and the Huskers are winning, we're cheering and we're high-fiving people that we've never even met before. That's what we need to do in this moment. Continue to stick together and to practice our democracy and vote.
Gotcha. So go ahead, Terrell.
I would say what we should do is, as a community, make sure you're getting educated on who's in leadership, get educated on who's running for office so you make the correct choice. I would say also vote for Terrell McKinney for legislator in District 11, because there's a need for change in our community. We can't keep going on with the status quo. Year after year, North Omaha in District 11 has the lowest poverty rate in the state, lowest graduation rates. That's the issue. There's people that have been in these offices or in leadership positions that say they've done a lot, but when you look at the statistics, I'd be like, how? Like, our community is still poor. We're being neglected by the rest of the city and state in a lot of ways, and we need new leadership to step up, to start calling truth to power and being unapologetic about it.
Well, that's the great thing, that we know that Ricketts is termed out, so this is his last term. So we just gotta make sure that whoever we put on that ballot to run against whoever they put, that they're a strong candidate. We get out there and get them out. Huh?
I said we want to make sure that we don't have anything like Ricketts coming on the ballot.
No, not at all. So let me ask you this. Last night there was a good question that was asked, and I'll ask this again. Most likely, I don't know. I may not ask this again, but it was just a good question. I'll ask it now. So what were you doing before you ran for office? What have you been doing to put yourself in this position to run for office? And then if you are elected to office, how can the community or your constituents expect to be able to connect with you?
Before I decided to run, I was working as a organizer in the community, volunteering a lot with different nonprofits in our community. Also volunteering a lot of my time as a volunteer wrestling coach, helping kids develop, not just athletically, but just academically. I also coach wrestling at North High. I just try to be as involved as possible. Mm-hmm. If something comes up and I could do it, I'll try to be there to help out. I don't need to be presented as this is so-and-so. I just want to come and put the work in. Even if I don't win, I'm still be active in our community, volunteering, helping out, coaching, whatever I could do to make sure that our community is a better place for everybody. So I won't even stop doing what I'm doing.
Alisha?
So before I decided to run for office, I've been a lifelong advocate. I started in case management. I worked with ResCare. I worked with the Goodwill Youth Partnership Program. And so I've always been working with what was labeled at-risk youth or people who are not don't have resources readily available to them, because that's how I grew up. Because I was a statistic, because I was labeled because of the amount of money that my mother made and the amount of kids that my mother had and where we live and that 68111 zip code. So I have always been working to empower people and to help them have a voice and to be a voice for the voiceless. And I've done that in many different environments. And most recently, I did that in Winnebago, Nebraska, who is dealing with, I've been on the phone with individuals this morning so that I can understand how I can help and what is going on with COVID-19 and that situation and that setting with what Governor Ricketts recently has done to our tribal nations. But I've also been taught by Delta Sigma Theta on how to organize and how to contact our legislators and talking points and how to even put an agenda together over the past 12 years. I've been blessed with the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and sit in these trainings and be trained by powerful people like Marsha Fudge, who is a congresswoman, who is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta, who sat and told us exactly what to do in order to work with campaigns, help individuals, and help bring light to the issues that are affecting our communities and specifically our states. And so I feel that this is something that I have been fully trained for, and why now I just got tired of no change happening in our state, especially with the climate and the environment. As a mental health therapist, many of the people that I counsel, the kids that I see, are dealing with a high level of PTSD and anxiety, specifically centered around school shootings. Imagine what is happening now. I saw a comment that a student said, you know what, at least that in this time period that we don't have school, at least we'll be safe and we know nobody will be shot because school is closed. And so we have already conditioned a generation to not feel safe in large gatherings. Now we have this COVID-19 pandemic. Imagine what their mental state is going to be. So we really need someone who's going to stand up. And I know that to be me. I am the change that I want to see on a federal level. And that's what I was doing. Now, the way that I will implement this with my constituents, when I went to see Ben Sass in 2017, no one in his office was from Nebraska. They didn't know, like, for instance, where Scotts Bluff is. And that's kind of how I quiz people, like, oh, yeah, where are you from? Or well, have you ever been here? They know basically Memorial Stadium. They know Lincoln, they know Omaha, and that's about all you got. And I think that we need everyone represented. I want a staff of whatever we have in Nebraska, that's what I want to be reflected in DC. Because that's the best way for us to highlight the issues that are going on in our state, to bring everybody to the table. Everybody needs an opportunity. And so I'd like to take that moment to say, if you are interested, if you are a poli-sci major, if you are in college, or if you are just tuning in and you've never met me before, I would love to talk with you, because I want a team of individuals that actually looks like what we have in Nebraska. Every population, every gender, everyone needs to be represented.
Thank you. So I just want to kind of discuss this real quick, because I just got an email. I just got an email.
Oh. Okay.
So, yesterday we were on a call with the county commissioners, with Brian Krause and Chris Crothers, and they wanted to make sure that key stakeholders were involved in the conversation. The Republican Party was on the call. The Nebraska Democratic Party was on the call. Preston Love was on the call. Civic Nebraska was on the call. I mean, it was many leaders on this call. And what they explained to us yesterday is that polling places would be closing, but they would not be closing like the epidemic in Wisconsin, how Wisconsin went from like 180 to like 5. It wouldn't happen like that. What was going on is that Omaha Housing Authority had requested that there not be any polling places inside of their towers. And that was because not only did the people in the towers, who most likely are high risk because they're senior citizens, come down to vote, but you would have people from the outside. So due to safety concerns, they asked that they haven't closed. And that, but then they made sure they reached out to Dr. Logan and they came up with a plan to make sure that it was more OPS schools, since kids are not in the schools. Those we'll have more OPS sites for polling places. So an email came from Crystal Rhodes, who's the chair of the Douglas County Democratic Party, and the email is just misleading. It basically says that the Election Commission told us to expect 180 to 200 polls in Douglas County on election day. Actually, it's going to be 202, between 202 and 204 is what they told us yesterday.
Okay.
Then she said there's usually about 240 to 250 polling locations. That is inaccurate because we don't even have that many precincts. So for these emails, and said of the 180 to 200 polling locations, about half of them are expected to be new. That's not true. Then it says that the email says that has not told us when the polling places will be impacted, which polling places will be impacted, and when the polling locations will be finalized. Excuse me, it's going to be the Omaha Housing Authority towers in North and South Omaha. They said that they will have that list publicly, will be sent out next week. Well, no, the beginning of May, which will still give enough time once they have everything finalized. We even asked for it on an Excel spreadsheet so that we can upload it, and they were in agreement to give that to us.
That's good.
So my thing is that when we are sending out information, that information that is coming from people in leadership needs to be disseminated in a factual way. And it's not fair to scare voters when you send out false information. We have to look at our leaders, regardless of what party they're affiliated with. And we have to hold them accountable when they're sending out information, because that information could go to somebody and it's not true. Mm-hmm. So now we're having to play cleanup. Mm-hmm. And now it makes it look as if the Election Commission office is wrong. And I don't feel that the Election Commission office has done anything wrong. I feel like Brian Krause and Chris Carruthers have done an awesome job in making sure that we are getting the ballots out there, that people are being able to vote, and that these polling places, even told us that cards went out yesterday to some of the polling places, some of the people, to let them know that their polling places have been closed and they'll be voting somewhere else. And there'll be yellow cards. They told us actually color. So what do you feel when we are disseminating information, especially when it comes from our president, but now we're having people locally who are supposed to be in charge of being great leaders, but disseminating false information? What do we do? How do we to continue to keep people in the know and people being positive? Because I think this turns away people from the whole voting process. This is when we start to see people like, well, I don't want to deal with voting. This is always something.
I think that, first of all, we know that anytime that there is a crisis, the number one mental state that most people will feel is fear. It's fear or it's anxiety. You're either worried about something or you're in fear that something bad is going to happen. So I think that in this current state of us not having clear information, that it makes sense that many of us will function not how we typically function. And so we might read an email of information and jump to a conclusion and have to take a minute and go back. So that's the first thing that I think. I think that we have so many people, number one, that are operating out of fear or out of anxiety or in a current mental state that we're trying to get through what's happening, that we are overreacting. We're being reactive instead of proactive. And that can happen. But the main thing that we need to do is, again, as we talked about with the president right now and the federal administration, we need to have a level of transparency. And let's make sure we are breaking down exactly what was said. Now, it sounds like, I don't know if this has happened because, some individuals were not present or they got information from another source, but it sounds like that we need to make sure that everybody is on the same page leadership-wise before we filter information out to the public. And we know with our current presidential administration, we know how he operates. And so that's a little bit different. But here in our state, we can definitely hold people accountable and ask them, hey, like what happened here? Can we make sure that everybody's on the same page? Because I'm a little bit confused. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I think that also goes back to what Terrell mentioned earlier. Do the research on your candidates. Go to the Nebraska Democratic Party's website. Go to the Douglas County Election Commission's website. Google their names. Get your ballot and do the research, because you want to make sure that you pick someone who represents the ideals that you think should be in that office.
I agree. Go ahead, Terrell.
I would say there should be some type of protocol, especially for leadership, to say, hey, double check this before you push send, double check this before you share it. I know for me, before I share something, I try to at least scan through the article to make sure it's from a credible source, it's not from 2016, and it's accurate. So that's what it needs to. Maybe we need to set some type of community protocol. Say, hey, if you in this type of leadership position, you got to go through these steps before you could click send, because I keep saying it's like there's been a lot of misinformation and it's confused a lot of people. I hear it when I call people on the phone and ask questions like, why this, why that? And I'm like, dude, it's not true, but it's been so much misinformation just pushed out every day that people are confused, and it's a problem.
Yeah, but we got a lot of work to do. We can't be having people doing disseminating information like Trump does.
Right.
So how are polling places affected throughout Nebraska? I don't know throughout Nebraska, Corey. I just know that with Douglas County, but we haven't had anything like come from the other county election commission's office. They've been very forthcoming when we send out the information. I know from the party aspect. So we haven't heard anything on regards to that. Craig had asked the question, is there going to be enough poll workers who want to work during the health crisis? On the call yesterday, they were really pushing us to really reach out to college kids, high schoolers who are able to vote, really pushing out to them. I did ask a question. They want to pay them $10 an hour. No, not $10 an hour. I think it was minimum wage, which is $9 in Nebraska. And that's going to be my next question to ask you guys. That was $9 an hour. And I had asked them, I said, well, since they have to be there 12 hours, is it possible to pay them, give them a $2 incentive, but in the budget, they're not able to do that in the county budget. So I said, hey, it doesn't hurt to ask. And that's what I did. So let me ask you this, both of you, do you support moving the minimum wage to $15?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, you go. Well,
go ahead, Terrell.
Oh, I would say yes, but I also believe that it should be some type of tiered system to keep it growing over time. Because honestly, minimum wage should probably be $20 or more right now, but it hasn't kept up with inflation. So we need to put something in place so this doesn't happen again. It can't just be 15 for 50 more years. We got to make it 15, but put something in place so it could keep growing over time.
Yeah. That's exactly what I believe too. I would be in support of starting at $15 an hour and then creating a committee to do research to make sure that this is a livable wage, right? Because let's be realistic. This additional $600 that they're giving to individuals for unemployment, it basically breaks down to if minimum wage was $15, and that in itself doesn't seem like it would be enough to support a family. And so, yeah, I would totally be in support of starting at $15 and then getting a research committee together to see what recommendations they would have in place for us to continue to boost that up to where it needs to be.
Cool. So let me ask you this. How can people get your yard signs and volunteer for you?
You could write me on Facebook, on my campaign website, Terrell McKinney LD11. You can send me an email, McKinney for LD11@gmail.com. I'll put it in the comment section. You can call my phone, 402-213-9328, and I'll get you one.
And for me, you can drop your name in here and I'll reach out to you in this live. You can send an email to info@sheltonforsenate.com with your address. We will put it in the ground for you so you do not have to, so we can practice social distancing and you don't have to come out and do anything as long as you're okay with that. If you're not okay with that, we can lean it beside the house. I'd recommend leaving it outside for 1 to 2 days before you put it in the ground, just to make sure that there's nothing that's been left behind on it. And then you can volunteer by going to the website. That's sheltonforsenate.com. If there's anyone in Terrell's district, if you'd like us to drop signs together, we are totally flexible and can do that. So if you want a yard sign for Alisha Shelton for U.S. Senate and Terrell McKinney, drop that in the comments and we'll make sure that we do that for you.
Okay, so do we have any endorsement announcements?
I am endorsing Alisha Shelton for U.S. Senate.
And I am endorsing Terrell McKinney for the state legislature for LD 11.
And I'm very proud of you guys, being on the other side and watching. Again, this is not endorsement by Precious. I'm just on here because they asked me to be on here, but I'm very proud of everything that you guys have done and the work that you've displayed. And I hope that everybody from anybody who has not had the courage to throw their hat in the ring to run for office, including myself, would have that courage after watching so many candidates run. I was just proud to be able to fund 19 candidates of color and being able to cut those checks and mail them out yesterday. I actually had tears in my eyes because, sometimes people don't understand how much it costs or how much $20 can go to a campaign. And so being able to cut checks that I know working with the party and I see that was very, very, I was honored to do that. That was something that I was honored to do yesterday. So I know a lot of our candidates of color will be getting their checks in the mail. I know they should be getting them today. So yes, I mailed them out yesterday. So very proud of you guys.
I was on the phone yesterday and I had a caller. Well, somebody I called. He was like, "Why don't I see Black candidates enough? Why aren't I as visible?" I'm like, man, like we try and we working, but it takes resources. It takes people donating to our campaigns so we can be more visible. It's just not us just saying we run, and it takes a lot. And I think our community, I understand it, and I kind of don't, but I do because again, our community has the highest poverty rate, so people are less apt to want to donate anything. But also, if we want candidates that are going to be for us, they're going to support our issues, we got to find a way to support them. It could take, just give us $1, $5. It doesn't take a lot.
Yeah, this is a historic, guys. I mean, this is historic. This is a historic election in 2020 to have over 25 candidates of color running for office. That's who will be on the ballot, who will be running for Douglas County. And I'm going to give a plug right now while everybody's watching. Spencer Danner is running for Douglas County chair. Wilson Sherman for vice chair. Make sure y'all support. If y'all need to know how to, I'll get y'all some information. But it's a very historic to see so many candidates of color running that represent communities that have been underserved. And like I mentioned last night, everybody knows that the Black voters are the backbone of the Democratic Party. We see that with our presidential candidates. We see when they hit the southern states, the Alabamas, the South Carolinas, North Carolinas, the Georgias, we see it. But we have to make sure that, we know, Corey, I know there are people of color outside of Omaha, Lincoln. I travel the whole entire state. The whole entire state. I travel, look, I go out there. But I think once the people understand that African Americans are not we are not the breaking case of emergency vote. We're out here, we vote, we're loyal to our voting, we're loyal to our churches, we're loyal. So hopefully people can do that. And I think we're gonna have to recruit Corey to come work for us. Corey said it's lonely out there. Girl, we're gonna come out there. Tell us where you at.
Is Corey in Fremont? Is that Corey in Fremont?
Girl, we're gonna come out there, Corey. We was on our way out there in March until they closed down. We were on our way. We were gonna spend the whole weekend there, and then they closed down, because of coronavirus. But we'll come out there, Corey. Trust me, it's only maybe a 25-minute drive from my house. I found the best way to get.
A quick comment about what we're talking about. I just want to do a level of transparency. It took an older shout out to Walter Sue Dodd. If anybody knows her, she is a Delta Deer. That means that she is a seasoned Delta. She's been around in the game for a while. It took one of an older member of my community basically talking to me about why we invest in campaigns. And the first campaign I invested in was Barack Obama's. And I did not understand how a little bit, $10 a month can go so far. And so I think that we don't necessarily do a great job in all communities expressing the importance of supporting candidates. And if you're planning to vote for them, how you can give $1, $2, $3. I have something going on right now $3, $30, $300. This is our threes day. So if you can, please go to the website, donate, go to my Facebook page, $3, $30, $300. Same thing for Terrell. If you'd like to loop him in that too, that would be great. But we don't necessarily do a good job in understanding all that comes into the campaigns and the supplies and raising money for the yard signs, et cetera. And so every candidate would love to be visible. And I think the big issue that we have is we've got to take big money out of politics. Look at all of our wonderful candidates on the Democratic ticket who put their name in the hat presidentially, who had to drop, and they dropped like flies because of funding. And no shade, but most of them were people of color. They were the first to get out of the race. That says something. So this Candidates of Color Fund that Nebraska Democratic Party has created, it's amazing, because I can tell you, running for United States Senate, there are disparities. And I now see why I am the first African American to run in over 42 years. I now understand that. So please do your research. If you find a candidate, if something that we said grabbed you, if you are inspired by this, then inspire us and donate $1 or what you can in this moment, so that in this last 3 weeks of campaigning until we get to the primaries, we can continue to hit the ground running, because that is something that I respect about Terrell and why I am endorsing Terrell. I have a saying that I work when people sleep, and so does Terrell. I'm always working, and so is he. And I know that he will be working for Nebraskans around the clock. So
Corey asked for the link for the Cancer Color Fund. The link, I don't have the actual link, but if you go to the Nebraska Democratic Party page and you click on contribute, in the actual box, put in Candidates of Color Fund, so they know that money goes to the Cancer Color Fund. It's a great opportunity, and shout out to Chair Klebb for establishing that, because she understood, again, that communities of color and candidates running did have a disadvantage when they were running for office, and they need all the assistance also. So big ups to her, and big ups to Dulce Sherman, who is the chair of the Latino caucus, and Michelle Skywalker,
yes,
chair of the
Hope you're watching.
As the candidates of color, as the chairwomen of those different entities, we were able to oversee the fund this year, and we took it to a whole nother level. We was like, nope, it's going this route. So, when you let women do it, it gets done. So any closing remarks?
Why does this keep popping up? Who sent me that? Sorry. Go ahead.
Up until now, into the primary, I need your support. I need you to spread the word by sharing some of my posts, talking to your family and friends about the importance of voting, and getting them to vote for me. Also, if you can, donate to my campaign. If you got $1, I'll take $1. But anything helps right now. You can visit my website, peopleforterrellmckinney.com. Facebook page is Terrell McKinney LD11 to learn more about me. And if you ever want to reach out and talk to me, just hit me up, and I'll be open to talking with you.
And so what I want to do is, first of all, thank Precious for leading this for us. Thank you, Terrell, for coming together with me and being very creative and finding a way to continue to campaign and show you guys who we are and what we believe in this stage of COVID-19, and finding a new level of communication. So I am in this to win. I believe that I am the most viable candidate because of my background, because of my experience. And I believe that we are in a really amazing moment where historically we could send the first person of color, which is a huge deal for me, to Nebraska, or to the DC from Nebraska, the first United States senator who is a minority. This should have already been done. We're talking about representation and a seat at the table. This may be the first conversation that you have had with me. If you've not followed me on my page, you may not know me, but trust me, you know my blueprint. So Shirley Chisholm is a Delta. Marsha Fudge is a Delta. Women who get things done traditionally and historically are members of Delta Sigma Theta. And I'm not trying to plug Delta Sigma Theta, because shout out to all the members of the Divine Nine. But the very first act that Delta Sigma Theta did in 1913 was the Women's Suffrage March. So I say that because this history has been taught to me and drilled to me, and I move in a certain way simply because I know what I'm representing and the movement that I'm a part of. So I invite you to join my movement. I hope that I've earned your vote. I hope that I've earned your respect, because you definitely have mine. And I hope that we can stand together and drain the gas out of SAS. I'm ready. Let's go.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much again for this opportunity. Also, I just want to let you guys know tomorrow at 1 p.m. on our Facebook Live on the Nebraska Democratic Party Black Caucus, we will be hosting the U.S. Senate candidates. So it'll be Alisha, Shelton, and all the other candidates who are running for office. We will do a forum from 1 to 2:30. And then on Tuesday, April 21st, we will then do the Legislative District 11. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 candidates, including Terrell McKinney, who are also running for Legislative 11. So we'll do that from 6 to 7:30. So you can tune in to our Facebook Live, ask questions, interact. We have some great moderators. Kimra Snipe will be a moderator for both those days. Barry Thomas is a moderator, and Miss Terry Crawford will also be a moderator. And guess what? You'll get to see my beautiful face, because I will be the technical person doing all of the technical behind the scenes things. So we are really excited to host this, to really get the candidates out in the open during this time, because they can't knock on doors. So we have to be real creative on how we get all the candidates' faces out here so that people can cast those votes. And we know you have those ballots. So we want to make sure that as you're filling out that ballot, you can put a face to the name. So again, thank you, Terrell and Alisha. I am really grateful for this opportunity to talk to you guys. And you guys have now had a seat at the table.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.